exist in space. And with stereophonic recording, the feeling of space and perspective is brought to you.
Hello and welcome to another album review on this channel. My name is Josh, and for today I am going to be reviewing the album I Can Hear the Heart Beating as One by the band Yo La Tengo. Yo La Tengo is an indie rock band from Hoboken, New Jersey. The band was formed in 1984 by Ira Kaplan and Georgia Humbly, who are a married couple that wanted to make music in a style of bands like the Soft Boys, Mission of Burma, and Love. In 1992, James McNew joined the band as the bassist, and he has been the bassist in this band ever since. The band's name, Yo La Tengo, is Spanish for I Have It, and they came up with this name based on a baseball story from the 1960s about two New York Mets players, Richie Ashburn and Elio Chacon, as both members of the band were big New York Mets fans. So the story goes that Chacon only spoke Spanish, so during games, Ashburn used to yell Yo La Tengo when he was planning to catch the ball to let Chacon know to back off and to help avoid outfield collisions. And because Ira and Georgia were New York Mets fans, they decided to name their band after that phrase, Yo La Tengo. The band's music features elements of indie rock, noise pop, experimental rock, and shoegaze. They have released 15 studio albums so far, with their last studio album, There's a Riot Going On, being released in 2018. But the album I'm reviewing today is I Can Hear the Heart Beating as One, which was their 8th studio album. This album was released on April 22nd, 1997, and the label this album was released under is Matador Records. The producer for this album was Roger Mutino. Roger Mutino is an American producer who produced every Yo La Tengo album between the releases of Painful, which was released in 1993, and Popular Songs, which was released in 2009. He also produced albums for bands like Slater-Kinney, Guster, The Sheepdogs, and Tennis. The members of the band on this album include Ira Kaplan, who plays guitar, keyboards, and vocals on this album. You have Georgia Humbly, who plays the drums, percussion, and vocals. And then you have James McNew, who plays the bass, percussion, keyboards, and vocals. There were 3 singles for this album. Those are Autumn Sweater, Sugarcube, and Little Honda. The genres for this album include indie rock, indie pop, noise pop, bossa nova, craw rock, and electronic music. This album was very positively reviewed. AllMusic gave this album 5 out of 5. Pitchfork gave this album 9.7 out of 10. Pitchfork also ranked this album number 25 on their top 100 albums of the 90s list. Rolling Stone gave this album 4 out of 5, and they ranked this album number 423 on their list of the top 500 greatest albums of all time. And Spin Magazine gave this album 9 out of 10, and they ranked this album number 78 on their list of the 90 greatest albums of the 1990s. This album was produced, recorded, and mixed at House of David Studios in Nashville, Tennessee, and all the songs on this album, except the 2 covers, were written by the band Yo La Tengo. So I'm not going to mention who wrote each song. except the 2 covers because they were all written by the band Yo La Tengo. So now I'm going to go over each song on this album. I'm going to give my overall thoughts on each song. Then after I finish going over each song, I'm going to give you my top 3 songs from this album. I'm going to give you my overall thoughts on the entire album. And then I'm going to give my overall rating and final thoughts for this album. So the first song on this album is called Return to Hot Chicken. This is an instrumental indie rock track. The song's title is a reference to the band returning to Nashville, Tennessee to record this album. And it's called Return to Hot Chicken because hot chicken is the signature dish of Nashville, Tennessee. My overall thoughts on this song, I thought this was an okay intro for this album. You know, the instrumental sounded good, but there was nothing really special that stood out for me. It's the shortest song on this album, and the basic melody is repeated throughout the song with very little variation, but it's so short that it doesn't really overstay its welcome. I think it does a good job of kind of setting the tone for this album. You know, it's very chill, very relaxing, and kind of introduce you to the band, which is a very chill and relaxing band. So that was the first track on this album, Return to Hot Chicken. You know, I thought it was okay. The second track on this album is called Moby Octopad. This is a chill indie rock / indie pop song that becomes more experimental as the song progresses. The song's title is a reference to the band's appearance on the 1995 Lollapalooza tour. During that tour, the band often performed after the electronica artist Moby, who used to play a Roland Octopad during his performance. So when Yo La Tengo would play, they would notice tape on the stage floor with the words Moby Octopad written on it. So they named this song Moby Octopad as basically a reference to that. But the song's lyrics are totally unrelated to that Moby story. It's just what the song's title is based on. The lyrics to this song are very minimal. You know, they're singing about living in the moment and not being distracted. They talk about when they're kissing, everyone else ceases to exist. And when they're at Shea Stadium watching the Mets play, they're focused on the game with nothing to say to each other. So basically, it's just a song about living in the moment, being there with the person you love. And throughout this album, there are a lot of similar type lyrics that you'll find. And I think part of that has to do with them being a married couple in a band together. So there are a lot of more love songs on this album, a lot of songs about being together. But they do explore other territories that I'll get into as we get further along with this review. But overall, you know, I really like this song. It has a really great bass line going throughout the song that kind of reminds me of the bass line in the song Opened by The Breeders. This was a song off their debut studio album Pod, which was released in 1990. All 3 band members are singing on this song, and they sing in a very, monotone, very quiet, relaxed style of singing that creates this very dreamy, chill vibe. The drums and bass really shine in this track, in my opinion, mostly because of the minimal instrumentation with the guitar only coming in to add, short atmospheric, shoegazy type riffs throughout. So the drums and the bass really get a chance to shine in this song. I like about halfway through the song when the piano and violin come in to play these really, chaotic, tense, suspenseful riffs that really give this song this kind of creepy vibe to it. I like that kind of shift that happens, halfway through the song. And it really complements the catchy bass groove and relaxed singing in this song perfectly. And I feel like this song is the perfect song to just chill out to relax to get high to if you partake in that. It's just a song to really just chill out and relax to. It's a very, the instrumentation changes throughout, it progresses, and I feel like this is a really great song and really showcases what makes this band so great. So that was the second song on this album called Moby Octopad. The third song on this album is called Sugarcube, and this is the first single to appear on this album. This is a very noisy, lo-fi indie rock song that reminds me a lot of bands like Sonic Youth and Dinosaur Jr. Lyrically, Ira is singing about a toxic relationship where you're willing to do anything for your partner, and your partner is still telling you to do better, that you're not doing good enough, that you need to do, you need to change. And it's basically lyrically talking about this toxic relationship that is not good for you, but you can't get out of. And overall, this is one of my favorite songs on this record. I love the energy of this song. It has great energy going throughout, but it clashes really well with Ira's very chill singing voice, which throughout this album, all the singers from the band on this album have a very chill and very, soft singing voice. So with a song like this, that's more of a noise rock, high energy song, I think Ira's signature, chill singing voice on top of the really catchy indie rock instrumentation works really well. The instrumentation has a lot of noise, but it's done in a musical way. It's very melodic, and it really adds to the chaotic vibe of this song, especially with the lyrics of being in a toxic relationship. I feel like that meshes up really well. I like the way they doubled Ira's voice in this song to give it a very shoegaze effect. And then the guitar solo is very chaotic and improvised. I was really enjoying this guitar solo by Ira, and it really fits the tone of the song well. It kind of reminds me of a solo from Jay Mascis from Dinosaur Jr. He would do those very chaotic, very noisy solos, and that's the first thing I thought of when I heard this solo. I really like the lyrics in this song, especially the line, "I'll try to squeeze a drop of blood from a Sugarcube," which is sang throughout the song in slightly different variations, but I thought just that line in general, the absurdity of it is just really clever. And I really have no criticisms for this song. I think it's just a really great song overall. And I think these, first two songs, if you don't really count that intro, is just a really strong start to this album for sure. And that was the third song on this album, Sugarcube. The fourth song on this album is called Damage. This is a very atmospheric, slow tempo, soft indie song. So very much a change in pace and tone from the last song, Sugarcube. Lyrically, the lyrics are very cryptic and abstract. What I think Ira is singing about is seeing an ex that you used to love, you used to date, but now the damage has been done and there's no going back to the way you used to feel. So, it's that feeling of seeing your ex again. And throughout this song, it's very cryptic, very kind of surreal lyricism. So that's just my interpretation, but I know people probably have other interpretations for this song. And overall, I like this song, but I don't love it, especially compared to the last two songs. This song is very chill and atmospheric. It reminds me of a song that you would find on like a Bryant album from the 80s. Has a very ambient vibe to it, mixed with elements of dream pop and even shoegaze. The lyrics are very minimal and it's sung very softly, so it sounds like, to me, really well-made elevator music or even background music for like a movie. It's very relaxing, but there's not much going on. There's not much, progression on this song. It's not a track that I would put on a playlist or go out of my way to listen to. But I like it on this album. I think it fits well with the kind of, minimalistic tone that you can tell they're going for. It's a very soothing, very warm sound to it that overall I enjoyed. So that's the fourth song on this album, called Damage. The fifth song on this album is called Deeper Into Movies. This is a noise pop song that is very melodic with a very catchy rhythm to it. Lyrically, the lyrics on this song are very surreal and nonsensical. And I honestly have no clue what these lyrics mean, but I don't really mind that personally. For me, for like a noise pop or even a noise rock song like this, the vocals are just like another instrument to be added into the noise, to add a melodic element to the noise. And just the way this song is mixed, they feel more like part of the instrumentation rather than being up front in the mix, being the most important part of the song. So overall, I really like this song. It has a really noisy instrumentation that meshes perfectly with, Ira and Georgia's very chill singing voices. And like I mentioned, I can't totally understand the lyrics or even after reading them know what they mean, but for me, the voices in this song are more part of the noise and more part of the instrumentation than, the main chorus of this song. This song actually reminded me of the song Loomer by My Bloody Valentine, which was off of their second studio album, Loveless. This song has that same effect where the noise instrumentation really drowns out the vocals and makes the vocals part of the background noise, like in the song Loomer. This song has a really great guitar solo, again by Ira Kaplan, and great instrumentation overall from all the band members. The drums are great on this track, and the bass playing by James McNew is also really well done on this track. And I just think this track as a whole sounded really ahead of its time. It sounded very unconventional and just very experimental for the indie music of that time, and especially for a band like this. I really enjoyed this song. This was one of those songs that really stood out for me on this album. And that was the fifth song on this album, Deeper Into Movies. The sixth song on this album is called Shadows. This is a very slow, soft, relaxing, atmospheric indie song with subtle jazz influences to it. Lyrically, again, this song has very abstract and kind of confusing lyrics. I interpret it as being about, taking time for yourself away from everyone else after you've been hurt by someone you love, and being okay with that, being okay in this relationship you're in with someone, to take time for yourself and know that, you still love that person still loves you, but you need to wait in the shadows for a while until you're ready to forgive them. So that's kind of how I interpreted this song. But again, the lyrics are very nonsensical at points. So this really is a song that's lyrically open for interpretation. But overall, I really like this song. It's a very short, sweet, and to the point song. It feels like a lullaby at times, with the very atmospheric and relaxing minimal tone that this song creates. I really enjoyed the use of trumpet and non-traditional percussion in this song, which gives the song, this more jazz vibe to it. This is also one of the few songs on this album where Georgia is singing by herself, and I think she sounds great on this song. She has a very sweet and soft voice that I think works perfect with this type of, very minimalistic and kind of atmospheric instrumentation. So yeah, overall, I really like this song. And that was the sixth song on this album, called Shadows. The seventh song on this album is called Stockholm Syndrome. This is a soft folk song that features a really cool distorted guitar solo. And the lyrics of this song are about Stockholm Syndrome, which Stockholm Syndrome is when, someone that's held captive or held hostage eventually expresses empathy towards the people that are holding them hostage. And overall, I like this song, but don't love it. Again, it has a very relaxing and minimal tone to it, similar to the last song, Shadows. It reminds me of a softer folk song that you would hear in the 60s and 70s, but with this indie rock energy to it. The song's in, faster tempo, and there's this really, distorted guitar solo, but still has that, overall folk sound to it. I think of artists like Cat Stevens and Neil Young when I was listening to this song. The guitar solo in this song is awesome. I really enjoyed it. The only nitpick I have for this solo is I don't like how it ended. It just ended very abruptly, and I felt like this solo needed to have some type of fade to go back into the, normal folky instrumentation, because it kind of just feels like it was jammed into the song, almost from another song, and just put in there when it just abruptly just ends like that. But that's more of a nitpick. This is also the only song on the record where James McNew is the singer, and he's singing by himself on this song. And I thought he sounded fine. I like his voice, but it's not really, super special or anything. I prefer Ira and Georgia's vocals to his, but I thought he sounded fine. And like I said, I like this song, but I don't really love it. And that was the 7th song on this album, Stockholm Syndrome. The 8th song on this album is called Autumn Sweater. This is the 2nd single to appear on this album, and this is a lo-fi indie pop song that features elements of trip hop and electronic music. Lyrically, the lyrics are about a relationship that's on the edge of falling apart because of lack of chemistry and warmth, and he questions if it's worth it for either of them to stay together. And I like the use of the phrase autumn sweater, as he's literally describing what his date is wearing, but also it can be used as symbolism for how the sweater is compensating for the warmth lost in their relationship. And overall, I really like this song. I think this is a really great song. It's one of Yo La Tengo's most popular songs, and it was the song that made me a fan of this band. It was the first Yo La Tengo song that I had ever listened to. It's how I discovered them. And it has a really great, catchy, trip-hoppy groove to it that continues throughout this song. I like the lo-fi, overly compressed, fuzzy tone that this song has. It gives this song a lot of texture, which I really enjoy. It has a real 90s feel to it that I think just works really well. And I really like Ira's singing on this song. He sings in very falsetto, soft vocals that adds to this very chill vibe of the song. This song has my favorite lyrics on the album so far. They're very poetic and abstract, but they're still clear enough to get the point across for you to clearly understand what Ira's singing about. And also, I really like the use of organ in this song. I feel like it helps the song stand out compared to the other songs in this album. It makes it sound more unique. And again, it helps with the texture of this song. This song reminds me of bands like Guided by Voices and the Amps, because it just has this super lo-fi, tone to it. And I can see why this is one of Yo La Tengo's most popular songs, because it's very melodic and it has that indie, pop energy to it, but it just has this lo-fi texture and warmth that I feel like really makes this song special. And that was the 8th song on this album, Autumn Sweater. The 9th song on this album is called Little Honda, and this is a cover of a Beach Boys song. This is the 3rd and last single to appear on this album, and this song was originally written by Brian Wilson and Mike Love from the Beach Boys. The Beach Boys are a rock band from Hawthorne, California that was formed in 1961. They are one of the most critically acclaimed and influential bands of all time. They have sold over 100 million records worldwide, and the band was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1988. So obviously, everyone knows the Beach Boys. This song, Little Honda, appears on their 6th studio album called All Summer Long, which was released in 1964. This song reached number 65 on the US charts in 1964. Also, this song was covered that same year in 1964 by the surf rock band The Hondells, and that cover of this song reached number 9 on the US charts in 1964. So this cover by Yo La Tengo is a noise pop song with elements of surf rock. Lyrically, the lyrics in the song are about the classic Honda C50 motorcycle. There's nothing really profound or special about these lyrics. It's really just a tribute to a motorcycle that Brian Wilson and Mike Love like to ride. So, this is a very simple song lyrically. And overall, I thought this was a really great cover. It keeps the same carefree, surf rock beach energy of the original, but it's mixed with Yo La Tengo's signature lo-fi noise pop instrumentation that they're excellent at doing. And I feel like these are the best covers where you keep elements of the original so you can tell that this is a cover and you're paying, tribute to that original, but you make the song sound different enough that if someone's never heard the original, they think this is your song. This sounds like a new song that you would make in your style. So it has that signature Yo La Tengo, style to it and sound, but you can still hear elements of that surf rock in it. I think Ira's chill vocal style works perfectly with this instrumentation. And the guitar solo is very basic. It's just a bunch of, super highly distorted and fuzzy chords, power chords being played over and over again. And it's a very simple song, but I think it works for, how simplistic the original song was. The original song is less than 2 minutes long, and it's just a very, fun, simplistic beach rock song. So I feel like they did a great job of getting that same energy where this is a very, simplistic kind of fun, noise pop song. So it's a different genre, but still has that same, energy that the original had. And overall, I think this is a really great cover by this band. And that was the 9th song on this album, Little Honda. The 10th song on this album is called Green Arrow. This is an atmospheric instrumental song, and overall, I thought the song was okay. It has an ambient, dream pop, shoegaze soundtrack vibe to it. It reminds me of a song Bryant would do, or even a song off of the album Pygmalion by Slowdive, which was their 3rd studio album where they experimented more with ambient tones in the ambient genre. This song really fits that kind of dream pop ambient vibe. It's one of the most relaxing songs on this album, and honestly, this was more of a song that I would fall asleep to than actually actively listen to. And I'm not saying that I hate this song. There's nothing really exciting or progressive about this song. It's just a very relaxing tone throughout. And, for instrumental song, I like to have my instrumental songs, progressing, adding to the music, doing something that's interesting that keeps you wanting to listen. And this is one of those songs where I feel like I can go to any part of the song and it all has that same, energy and vibe to it, which again, it works perfect when you're trying to find a relaxing song to fall asleep to. But for a song on an album like this, I just thought it didn't really fit well, especially with the flow of this album. I feel very similar to how I felt about the intro song on this album, Return to Hot Chicken. But I think with the intro, it works a little better because it's an intro, and also that song was much shorter. This song is over 5 minutes long, so I just felt like this song was, it was okay, but it wasn't a song I'm a huge fan of. And that was the 10th song on this album, Green Arrow. The 11th song on this album is called 1 p.m. Again. This is a slower, very soft indie folk song with elements of country to it. Lyrically, the lyrics in this song are very abstract and vague. I don't know exactly what this song is about, but overall, I wasn't really impressed with the lyrics in this song. I thought they were pretty basic for me. And overall, I like this song. I think Ira's singing in this song is very, impressive just because it's just so different from, Ira's normal singing voice. So in this song, Ira sings with this very deep voice that sounds different from any other vocal performance that, he does throughout this album. His voice on this song actually reminded me of Iggy Pop's voice on the song Pumping for Jill off of his 5th solo studio album, Party. On that song, Iggy Pop has that very deep voice that, has that tremolo, vibrato to it. And it really reminded me of Ira's singing voice in this song. It's a very unique singing style that I liked. I thought it was just something different than what we're used to. The instrumentation on this song is very dreamy, very soft, indie folk / pop sound to it that has this 70s folk country vibe that I noticed. It's a very short and simple song with really basic lyrics that, didn't really impress me that much. And it's a song that doesn't really reinvent the wheel or do anything that super stands out for me, but I thought it sounded good overall, and I like this song. And that was the 11th song on this album, 1 p.m. Again. The 12th song on this album is called The Lie and How We Told It. This song sounds very similar to the previous song, 1 p.m. Again. Again, a very slow tempo, soft indie folk song. Lyrically, this is another song with very vague and abstract lyrics. This is something throughout the album, especially at this point, you're realizing that they like to do this type of lyrical style that's very kind of surreal and vague and abstract. So I had trouble interpreting the lyrics for this song. I can just tell by the language and just the tone of this song that this has very, melancholy vibes to it, very kind of sad, depressing vibes. It seems like it's dealing with an unhealthy relationship, but that's basically all I could interpret from it. And overall, I thought this song was okay, but it just didn't feel necessary for this album. Or if you're going to include this song on this album, I would have put this later on the album or earlier on the album, but separate it from the last track, 1 p.m. Again. Because for me, these two tracks sound so similar, and to have them back to back, it almost feels like one whole song. It doesn't. For me, I like to have, variation with an album, so it just flows better as a listening experience. And I feel like having these two songs being back to back, it just disrupts that flow. I think these songs, you start to get kind of bored of the sound because they're just so similar sounding. The thing I did enjoy about this song was the 3-part harmony singing by all 3 band members. Which they don't do a lot throughout this album, so I was really impressed with their singing tone on this album and that 3-part harmony that they did. And I think the song itself, just in a vacuum, if I would just heard this song, if someone just showed me this Yo La Tengo song, I would enjoy it. I think it's a fine song by itself, but in the context of the album, I just don't think this song fits well. It makes you feel kind of bored. And especially coming off of 1 p.m. Again, and even Green Arrow, which I thought that song was very, that ambient kind of, song that you would almost fall asleep to. It's just, we're kind of at this point in this album where these songs are starting to get a little bit repetitive, just the sounds. And, this song really was the song that I noticed that, I when I got to this song, I really realized okay, this album's pretty long and I'm starting to get a little bored with, them not switching up the style for these songs. So overall, I wasn't a huge fan of this song, but I think by itself it's fine. It just doesn't fit with the context of the album, at least for me. And that was the 12th song on this album, called The Lie and How We Told It. The 13th song on this album is called Center of Gravity. This is a very chill, relaxing bossa nova song, which this is the first bossa nova song that they've done for this album. And lyrically, this song is about being in love with someone so much that they become the center of gravity for you. And, you can't feel your feet on the ground when you're with them. So, it's very simple lyrics, but it fits that bossa nova style. And overall, I love this song. I feel like, especially coming off of the last 2 or 3 songs, this was a total change of pace. And it was just, I was so much enjoying this song. It's easily my favorite song on the album. I'll just tell you that right now. This song just has such a great sound to it. I love the bossa nova style. And I think Georgia and Ira's singing voices, that super quiet, kind of monotone voice works perfect over, the bossa nova instrumentation. This song, you have Georgia taking the lead on the song, while Ira's providing the background vocals, the ba-da-ba-bas, that background ad-lib that is very common in bossa nova music. I think Georgia's soft soprano vocal style sounds great on this song, and her vocal performance actually reminded me of Astrid Gilberto's vocal performance in the classic bossa nova song The Girl from Ipanema by Stan Getz and João Gilberto, and was written by Antonio Carlos Jobim. If you're a fan of that song or just bossa nova music in general, you'll definitely enjoy this song. I feel like the instrumentation on this song was excellent, and it just really fit that bossa nova style. I love the bass line in this song and the use of bossa nova, Brazilian style percussion instead of, traditional drum set. Also, I like that they used piano during the end of this song, which was very common in bossa nova music, and I feel like it's a perfect addition to this style of song. I really enjoyed the lyrics to this song. It's very sweet love story sung by Ira and Georgia, which makes sense because they're married. So overall, I think this is just a perfect song, very simple, and even though it's not a cover, it just feels like a tribute to the classic bossa nova, style and genre, and just all those songs. So this is, like I said, my favorite song on this album, and was just such a relief after these last few songs that started becoming boring. This is for me where the album really saves itself with a song like this. And that was the 13th song on this album, called Center of Gravity. The 14th song on this album is called Spec Bebop. This is an instrumental krautrock style song. And krautrock is a genre of experimental rock music that was developed in West Germany in the late 60s and early 70s. It blends elements of psychedelic rock, avant-garde composition, and electronic music. Some popular artists in this genre include Neu!, Can, Faust, and Kraftwerk, among others. And overall, I didn't like this song. I just wasn't a fan of how long this song was. It comes in at 10 minutes and 40 seconds, which I feel like is way too long for an instrumental song like this. Before this song, I had never listened to a krautrock song before, so I listened to some of the classic krautrock songs, and this song is very similar to the other songs in that genre. So I will say that this is a faithful, tribute to that genre, similar to how Center of Gravity was a faithful tribute to bossa nova. So, I give them credit for that. I'm just not personally a fan of this genre. I feel like this song was really repetitive and just kind of boring, just very, it was noisy, but wasn't interesting or melodic in the noise. It sounded very industrial-like, and is that type of electronic music that I'm not a fan of personally. This is a song where you can go to any section of the song and it sounds the exact same as the last section. There's no progression at all. It has that very, avant-garde kind of non-linear style where, the beginning is the same as the end, which is very common in krautrock. And again, I've listened to some of the classic krautrock songs, and this is very similar to those. So if you're a fan of that style of music, you probably will like this song. Again, Yo La Tengo is a very professional band that makes amazing music. They're very talented, so I think they did a good job of emulating this style. It's just not for me. There's nothing in here that makes me enjoy this at all. There's no melody. It's just random electronic noises, and it's just way too long. I mean, if you're gonna make a song like this, you gotta make it at least 5 or 6 minutes, but 10 minutes, over 10 minutes is just way too long. And I feel like it just hurts the flow of this album so much. And if you're gonna make a song like this, a super long song, it should be the ender of the album, in my opinion, because when you end the album off with an epic, it feels like, okay, that's the end of the album, end of the movie, end of whatever, that's the climax. And for there to be two songs after this one really messes with the flow of this album, because after listening to this, at least for me, I wasn't enjoying this. I was really bored and tired because it just went on for so long. And to have the two songs afterwards, really hurt those two songs, because I'm already kind of out of the album. I'm kind of lost. I've forgotten the previous songs in the album because this song was just so long. There's really not much I like about this song, honestly. I wish there was some type of guitar solo or some solo or something, but there's no solos. It's just basically the same music throughout. So yeah, this is a song that I always skip on re-listens, because I've listened to it twice now, and I can't find anything new about it. So I would recommend, listen to the song once, give it a try, but don't feel bad with, skipping a song like this on a re-listen, because I feel like it just doesn't add to the album at all. And that was the 14th song on this album, Spec Bebop. The 15th song on this album is called We're an American Band. This is a slower tempo, soft, shoegaze style song. The title for this song is actually a reference to a song by Grand Funk Railroad called We're American Band. This was a song off of their 7th studio album of the same name, but this is not a cover of that song. It's just a reference to that song, similar to how Moby Octopad had nothing to actually do with Moby in terms of the lyrics or even just the song style. It was just a reference. So this song title is just a reference to that song, and it's not actually a cover. Lyrically, this song has very simple, minimalistic lyrics. Ira and Georgia are singing about seeing a car accident. Then the next verse, they sing about which movie they want to see in the theater. So, this is a very basic, simple song lyrically. There's really not any deep meanings to this song, at least that I could find. But overall, I really love this song. I think it's a great song. It has my favorite guitar solo by far on this album. The guitar solo is just amazing. It's beautiful guitar solo by Ira Kaplan. That's easily the best part of this song. The sounds he gets out of his guitar are crazy to me. Again, very much in that shoegaze style with a lot of effects being used and a bunch of different techniques, the squeals, there's just so many different techniques he does with the guitar in this song. And this guitar solo actually reminded me of solos from guitarists like Larry Lalonde from Primus, Kevin Shields from My Bloody Valentine, and Jay Mascis from Dinosaur Jr. And the reason I mention these three guitarists is because of their unconventional solo style and just the effects that they would use, just creating these really crazy sounds. And, I don't think Ira is as good as those guitarists, or maybe he is and he just doesn't show it a lot on his songs. But I feel like this solo in particular was super impressive and way exceeded my expectations for how good of a guitarist Ira Kaplan was, because he just kills it on this song. And the song itself starts off with this really slow and noisy shoegaze style instrumentation with Ira and Georgia's signature, soft singing style on top of that. And then it goes into this guitar solo, which is, I'm pretty sure, over 2 minutes long, and it changes the entire feel of this song. Georgia's drumming becomes way more intense and fierce, and it becomes this amazing indie rock, noise pop song. I don't even know how to describe it. It has shoegaze elements. It's just amazing. It just sounds so great. My only nitpick with this song is I feel like a song like this is a perfect ender for this album. And again, this is very much a nitpick because, I think the track order does matter in terms of flow. But, this is being the second to last song. I think that's fine. It's just with a song with a guitar solo this epic, I feel like the song that follows it is just not going to match up to just how epic and just crazy that guitar solo was. And I was just blown away, honestly, almost speechless when I heard that guitar solo. Because I'm just so surprised because throughout this album, he plays such a subtle, guitar, and even on his more distorted kind of rocky solos, he's not getting even close to all the, tapping and squealing and just crazy stuff he does in the solo. So, this song I thought was amazing. The drumming on this song is great, the bass playing, and even though there is singing, this almost feels like an instrumental song to me, with the singing just being part of the instruments, because the lyrics really aren't that deep, and honestly the lyrics are only in the first half of the song. The whole second half is just instrumental. So this is a really cool song that I definitely enjoyed. And that's the 15th song on this album, called We're an American Band. The 16th and last song on this album is called My Little Corner of the World. And this is actually a cover of an Anita Bryant song. The song was originally written by Bob Hilliard and Lee Pockris. And Anita Bryant is a pop singer from Barnesdale, Oklahoma, who was popular during the late 50s and early 60s. The song In My Little Corner of the World was a single that appeared on her album of the same name, which was released in 1960. The song reached number 10 on the US charts in 1960, and Yo La Tengo's cover version of this song was used in the TV show Gilmore Girls, which really increased the popularity of this band at the time. And this is a very chill, relaxing indie pop song. And lyrically, this song has really simple lyrics. Basically, the singer is telling, the person that they love to join them in their corner of the world, where they do the things that they like. And overall, I really enjoyed this cover. Georgia's singing in this song is really well done. I really enjoy her very soft singing voice. That very relaxing tone that she has in her voice, I think is really beautiful. And it's just a very simple, short cover that I think is a great addition to this album. The instrumentation is very catchy and chill and just relaxing, indie pop music. There's this really short keyboard solo in the song that I really enjoyed. And also I feel like the lyrics in this song can be kind of symbolistic of what it's like being a fan of Yo La Tengo, because Yo La Tengo is this super critically acclaimed band, but they're considered to be like a critic's band, or like a music nerd's band. If you're a super fan of indie music and you're in like the know, then you know that this is a great band, but they aren't popular really in the mainstream at all. And this song, in a way, I was just kind of interpreting of like, if you're a fan of Yo La Tengo, you're kind of in your own little corner of the world. You're kind of in your own space as fans of Yo La Tengo and just similar indie music of this time period. Just never really hit the mainstream, and especially in 2022, not a lot of people talk about Yo La Tengo as much anymore. But yeah, overall, I just really enjoyed this cover. I thought this was a really beautiful way to end this album. And that's the end of this album with the 16th song on this album, My Little Corner of the World. Now I'm going to talk about my top 3 songs on this album, and this is in no particular order. The first song is Sugarcube. This is the third track on this album, and one of the singles for this album. This was that very noisy, Sonic Youth style song. I just really loved the chaotic and like improvised nature of the song. I thought the guitar solo was great. It was just super catchy, and I really liked the lyrics. I thought there were some really clever lyrics in that song. The second song for me is Center of Gravity. This was that very chill bossa nova style song. I thought Georgia singing just was amazing on this song. I thought she killed this song. I love the instrumentation, the bass line, the percussion in this song was great. And I just really enjoyed the lyrics. I thought this was a really well-written song. And my third top song on this album is We're an American Band. This was the more shoegazy song with that really amazing, beautiful guitar solo by Ira Kaplan. Just it blew me away, that guitar solo, as well as, the bass playing and the amazing drumming by Georgia. I mean, I think that song, instrumental wise, is the best, instrumental in this song. There's just so much going on. Just the sounds that they create, the effects that they're using. Just how that song progresses and changes throughout. That song was amazing. So those are my top 3 songs on this album. And now I'm going to give my overall thoughts on this album. First thought that comes to mind is this album has excellent instrumentation, and every song just sounds great and professional. The mixing on this album is excellent, very well done. Every instrument stands out. They don't overcrowd each other. They fit very well in the frequency spectrum. Georgia Humbly is an amazing drummer, and I feel like her style really fits this band well. She's really great with dynamics. She can play softly and loudly, but still always stands out in the mix. Her drumming is just very powerful, but just that subtleness that just fits perfectly with the band like this. And especially on the song We're an American Band, that's where I feel like her drumming really stood out for me. James McNew, who's the bassist, I thought he sounded great throughout this album. He doesn't do too much. He's definitely kind of the third member in terms of standing out on these tracks. But I think the song Moby Octopad, that was really a great bass line that he created for that song. So I thought I was really impressed by his bass playing throughout this album. I also really enjoyed the singing on this album. I think all the members sounded good, and I'm really impressed that this is a band where all the members sing. And they have their own songs where they sing, and then there's songs where they do 3-part harmonies. So I was just impressed with the vocal performances all around. My favorite vocal performance was Georgia on Center of Gravity. I thought she sounded amazing there, very soft vocal style, but you can tell she can really sing, and I felt like it perfectly fit that bossa nova style that she was going for. Ira really impressed me with his vocal range throughout this album. Some songs he had more of a falsetto vocal style, like on song Autumn Sweater, where it's that more falsetto style. And then on a song like 1 p.m. Again, he goes into that more deeper, Lou Reed, Iggy Pop style of singing that I thought was really great. And then James McNew, he only sang on one song, Stockholm Syndrome, but I thought he sounded good on that, and I'm just impressed that all of them can sing, and with their soft singing style, they still sound good. There's no weird vocal cracks or just, auto-tune sounding. It just sounds very, raw and organic, and just really well done singing on this album. I enjoyed all the guitar solos on this album. I think Ira Kaplan is a great guitar player, and he just sounded great on this album. I was really surprised with his guitar playing on We're an American Band, just because up to that point he really hadn't showed off his chops, but I think that song alone, his guitar playing is just excellent, and it probably sounds amazing live. Just all the different effects on the guitar and just the dynamics. I was just blown away by that solo. I also want to talk about the diversity on this album. This album has so many different genres, and that's something I really love about this album. I love albums where, artists experiment with different genres and just different sounds. And I feel like this album just has so many different genres and sounds that they, use in these songs while still keeping that signature Yo La Tengo sound, very chill and relaxing. Even the noise rock songs aren't too crazy, it still kind of keeps that the sound, and especially with their very soft singing style. I think it just works, and I think it's really impressive just all the different genre styles that they put in this album. And I can really tell they're a super talented band to be able to do all those different styles and fit in one album. I was really impressed by that, and I can see why critics love this band so much, because they switch up their styles and they never stay with the same sound, but they still keep that same Yo La Tengo quality. It makes sense why critics and music nerds, hipsters, indie music fans love this band so much. And also, I just want to mention, this is a really long album. It comes in an hour and 8 minutes long, and this is an album where you can really feel the length. I think a lot of that has to do with the Spec Bebop song that I just feel like is way too long. I feel like if they would shorten that song and just change some of the track orders around, I think the album would flow much better. The Spec Bebop song is over 10 minutes long, and they actually did eventually shorten that song when they put it on the compilation soundtrack album that they did called They Shoot, We Score. This was released in 2008, and on that album, they re-recorded the song Spec Bebop, and they made it only 3 minutes long. And the song is much more listenable, and I enjoyed it way more at 3 minutes long, because you get that same krautrock sound from the original. It's just much shorter, and it just makes the song much more listenable too. So I feel like if that version was on the album, also if they switched up the track order to make the album flow better, I think it just would have been a more listenable album overall. But I will say this album, you can really feel the length, just because of how long it is. And now I'm gonna give my overall rating for this album. My rating for this album is a 4.5 out of 5. I thought this was an excellent album that I really enjoyed listening to. I had only heard a couple of Yo La Tengo songs before this, like Autumn Sweater, but I'd never listened to a full album of theirs before. And I knew that, they're very critically acclaimed. A lot of people have a lot of praise for their albums. So I was expecting to probably like it, but I didn't know I'd like it this much. I really enjoyed this album. I thought, a lot of these songs, I was just amazed by the instrumentation and just how talented they were as musicians, the sounds that they were creating. The songwriting. I mean, it's credited for all three of them as, the band is the songwriters. So I don't know who really did the lyrics and who did the music. I prefer the music on this album. I will say the lyrics, didn't really impress me that much on this album, but just the songwriting as a whole was just really well done. And, I highly recommend this album. The only thing I didn't like, again, was the length of this album. I thought was a little long. The Spec Bebop song, that was the only song I really didn't like in this album. I could do without that song. But I can totally see why critics rank this album as one of the best albums of the 90s. I think it's a really well-made album. And I just really enjoyed listening to it. And now I'm going to talk about who I would recommend this album for. In this section, I'm going to mention some artists, both older artists from the 80s and 90s, and more modern artists from the 2000s and the 2010s, who I feel like if you like these artists, then you would probably enjoy this album. So first, I would recommend this album to fans of older bands like Pavement, Stereolab, Built to Spill, Guided by Voices, Galaxy 500, and Silver Jews. To me, when I was listening to this album, these are artists and bands that I was thinking of, and I feel like if you're a fan of these bands and their music, you would probably enjoy this album. I also want to recommend this album to people who are fans of more modern bands, from the 2000s and the 2010s, like Death Cab for Cutie, Broken Social Scene, Deer Hunter, Dirty Projectors, Destroyer, and The Microphones. Again, these are bands that I feel like, if you're a fan of these bands and you enjoy, the music that they can make, you probably will enjoy this album as well. It features very similar styles, and I can just hear similarities when I listen to this album to the bands that I have mentioned. And that does it for the album review today. Again, the album is I Can Hear the Heart Beating as One by the band Yo La Tengo. I want to thank everyone for listening and watching. Hope you all have a great day, and peace out.